the differences is North Jersey people have this way, and it's North Jersey, it's not South Jersey, have this way of, even when they're wrong, they're right.
This is gonna hurt. It's time for the Suffering Podcast.
Support is one of the most pivotal elements that sits unnoticed behind action. Those that sit in the spotlight did not get there alone. There is an army that sat behind them and facilitated that ability to be seen and accomplish greatness. Faceless, nameless, and unrecognized are the people who are responsible for the safety and well-being of those doing the work. In the modern world, there is no such thing as clandestine or rogue, and those that sit behind the curtain bear immeasurable weight and onus to those they support. The true unsung hero is the one who selflessly goes behind the scenes and makes sure everything is in order. While they are out of harm's way, they are never without pressure. The success or failure to those that are beholden to a heavy weight and burden on their soul. I'm Kevin Donaldson here with Mike Failace, and welcome to the Suffering Podcast. If you're a fan of overcoming adversity and overcoming suffering, then we're for you, because that's what we do here and that's the stories we highlight. So do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, please comment, ring the bell so you can get notified of all of our new content. Now you can join. Follow us on all social media so you can find out what we're up to. On this episode of the Suffering Podcast, we've been waiting to get somebody in here just like this for a long time, and we want to welcome Nancy Nugent to discuss the suffering of a dispatcher, because you guys really are the unsung heroes. Without you, we wouldn't be able to do what we do.
Thank you.
We wouldn't be able to get to where we got to get to.
Before we get into anything, let's throw a big shout out to our marquee sponsor. That's Toyota of Hackensack. We don't trust anybody as police, but we do trust them. So go to toyotahackensack.com and let them find you a car. So Nancy, each week we take a question from one of our audience members. This week's question comes from Slippery424. How do you get out of your negative thoughts? Kind of a random question.
It is, but I have a very, very easy answer for me. For me, I go out into the woods. I go hiking, take the dog out, just an hour or so out on a trail, and my mind is just totally cleared, just being out in nature.
Sometimes the trees, they talk to you. Like if you quiet down and you're sitting out in the wilderness all alone and just listen to the trees rustle, they're talking to you.
Or even the rustling of the leaves like you're walking on and all that stuff.
And I've done that. I'll stop in the middle of the trail and just, they call it forest bathing, I think, but you just listen. They do. I actually Googled it. I'm like, you have to do it for an extended period of time to actually consider bathing. But, just even for a minute or two, I'll just stand there and just listen. And I consider that my church.
It's a nice way to calm your mind until you run into Cocaine Bear.
Well, that has not happened yet. That has not happened. I probably Googled about him while I was hiking because I heard about it, but that has not happened yet. No bears at all, thankfully. Mike,
what do you think? You and I have gone through a period where our thoughts were almost 100% negative.
And that was just this week.
Yeah, and then, the sun rose the next day. And so how did you get out of it?
Yeah, it's usually exercise. Back before my neck surgery, it used to be running. I'm having a bad day, I just go out and go running. Now it's just go to the gym or... You just got to find that spot where you're comfortable, your comfort zone. And to me, the gym's always been my comfort zone.
The statistic is that 80% of our thoughts are negative.
I believe that.
That's crazy, right?
Yeah.
80% of our thoughts. As a child, it's much less, but as you grow up, because you see...
Because kids aren't jaded yet.
No, that's what it comes from. It comes from getting jaded. So you try to approach things with gratitude, right?
Right.
This is how I view getting out of my negative thoughts. And everybody, not everybody, but there's a vast majority of people who think that if joy will bring gratitude, okay, it's actually reversed. Gratitude will bring joy. So you got these people out there, if I hit the lottery, then I'll be grateful for everything. How many people you see or you watch on TV hit the lottery and they're absolutely miserable? It didn't bring them any joy. But the people who take a look around at their surroundings and what they did obtain or what they have, whether it's their family or whether it's their dog or whether it's, their job, whatever it may be, if you're joyful in what you have already, then all of a sudden you can have that gratitude, and you're grateful for the things you have. And then all of a sudden that joy comes in secondary.
And then actually, if I kept taking that comment just with exactly what I do as a dispatcher, I have actually thought that a lot because I hear things on the phone. You hear things like, some great, some awful. And I've taken some of those things like, wow, selfishly, maybe I sit there, I'm glad that's not me.
Yeah.
I'm grateful I have this, or I'm grateful
That you don't have this.
Right, that I'm not dealing with this. Maybe I'm not the richest person in the world, but I'm not dealing with that problem. I hope I can help them, but I'm not going home to that. You know?
So for me, it's just that's how I get out of my negative thoughts. It takes me some time. I'm not a master at it.
Right.
Trust me when I tell you, none of us are going to be masters at it.
Well, we've gone through where we didn't want to get out of our negative times.
Right. We were comfortable there.
Yeah.
You get so comfortable in that negative spot, you dig that hole and you just want to stay there. You don't want anybody to come. All you want them to do is throw dirt on you, not help you get out.
Push you down, and that's why misery loves company too.
Absolutely.
You sit down at any time, any of these power drinking bars, and if you're looking for misery, you'll find it. You'll find it. So Slippery 424, thank you for sending that one in. Keep sending in your questions, and we will try to get them on the air. So we had this very interesting introduction. Did you reach out to me on social media? Was that how it started?
So what happened?
I'm trying to think of how you made contact first.
I reached out to you after listening to your podcast, which I found, I'm kind of nosy. Someone that I love very dearly is still going through some things, and was contacted by somebody, and me being nosy, like, oh, I need to Google who this person is.
You can mention the name.
Bill Mazer is his name. And so I was Googling him to find out who he was, found out that he was on a podcast. All right, let me see who this person is. It was your podcast, found out that's in New Jersey. And then it just went, I listened to a few and just reached out and said, it's a great podcast. Have you ever thought about having a dispatcher on? And here we are.
Yeah.
We thought for a long time about having a dispatcher on.
But it's hard to get, especially an active dispatcher. Yeah. It's hard to get an active dispatcher on there because there's two ways dispatchers go. You have your career dispatchers, and then you have your dispatchers looking to do their time to try to get on.
Yep.
Yeah. Start paying into the pension system.
Yeah, it's hard to get an active dispatcher because departments, there's a lot of clearance.
Yeah.
When we have active cops in here, we have to make sure that their department's okay with it. You know, and there's restrictions, obviously. And we went through that vetting process with you, making sure that was okay. But so Billy, it's a very interesting story how Billy came back into our lives. We were at Blue Magazine. They were having a moment of silence dinner, and Josh Vidal was there, who was an Atlantic City officer, got shot in the head, and standing next to him, all of a sudden he goes, "Hey, Kevin." Well, I didn't recognize him. I went to high school with him. We both went to high school in South Jersey, and we reconnected, had him on the show, and he is responsible for saving so many lives. And I always say, although he was deputy chief of Atlantic City, what he's doing now is so much more important.
Yeah.
So
he went to high school in South Jersey. How come he's smart and you ended up like this?
He matriculated very quick. It's got something to do with. I got. You know what? He had a good family life. I guess that's what it comes down to. So, Nancy, I know a little bit about you, but why don't you tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
Well, I am a Jersey girl, tried and true. I've tried a couple times to get out, always come back. I think I'll be here probably forever,
I have traveled coast to coast, north and south, east and west. I've traveled the whole country. There was like 2 places that I would ever move to, and one of them would have been Las Vegas, but I heard that's not it. And the other one would have been San Diego.
San Diego's beautiful,
but I heard that's going downhill as well. Other than that, it's pretty much the same. Yeah. They all have their Costco's, their CVS's, their Walgreens. They all have it's pretty much the same, except we pay a ton of taxes.
But some places have year-round warm weather, which I'm looking for.
Yeah.
I don't know whether that's a good thing.
I can't.
For me, it is.
I need the seasons.
Yeah, I need seasons. And I've actually done a half cross-country road trip, and you get back here, and especially where we are in North Jersey, you can be in the city, the country, the beach within an hour or less. You have everything, anything, food, entertainment that you want, any direction.
I am not living anywhere where I have to travel more than 20 minutes to get to Walmart.
Oh. Well, yeah, that too.
When I was out in the Midwest, I was out in the Dakotas. It is one of the most. I don't understand how people live out there because it is so. And I apologize to anybody that's listening from that area.
That's a good way of getting us listeners from that area, Kev. Thanks,
it is so damn flat. I mean, the only thing good about the Midwest is Austin, Minnesota, where Spam is made. That's the home of the Hormel Company, which I've been to Spamtown, USA, which is why I'm such a big fan.
Can't say I've even eaten Spam, but
oh God, you don't know what you're missing. You should try it.
You've had Taylor ham though.
Obviously, and it is Taylor ham. It is not pork roll, so don't even try it.
Here we go.
Don't even try it.
I just read. Hey, listen, I read the package, and the package says Taylor ham pork roll.
It's Taylor ham, and it's 2 against 1 for that. So.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
unfortunately, even the Taylor Ham Company has settled that dispute.
Have they really?
Oh, yes, they have.
Wow.
Well, Trenton settled it too. They're the pork roll capital of the world.
Yeah,
They're not
exactly.
to tell him. But
So it's well, again, so traveling coast to coast, I've been living in North Jersey for much longer than I lived in South Jersey. It's, what was it, 22 years or 25 years versus 17 years.
Right.
So when I was traveling all over the country, first of all, I was traveling at a time when The Sopranos were on, and everybody asked, well, where are you from? I said, I'm from where they filmed The Sopranos. That was pretty much it. But the differences is North Jersey people have this way, and it's North Jersey, it's not South Jersey, have this way of, even when they're wrong, they're right.
Absolutely.
oh yeah, they'll fight you to the end.
Absolutely.
Yeah, even when
Yeah.
they're
They'll
wrong,
fight
they're
you
right.
to the end.
Yeah.
It's like, this is white. No, it's not. It's like beige. No, it's
It's
white.
white.
It's
Yeah.
black. The letters are black.
Letters are black. They're a little
Everything else is
yellow on
white.
it.
Yeah.
Right.
Everything else is white.
So that's, but what's it about the state that is so drawing to you?
I think it's, again, what I said before, you can have anything you want within less than an hour. You're not sitting there, oh, I want to go to the beach. All right, pack up. We got to drive 3 hours to get there. Or I want to go to the city. I love that too. I'm not a big city person, but I love when people, who've never been to New York, they're like, oh my God, New York. I'm like, it's just New York. Like, whatever. I see it every day. Like,
That's what I say. We grew up. I mean, the area we're from.
Yeah.
The skyline's right in our backyard.
Yeah.
I've seen it every day growing up. And it's like, there it is.
People are like, oh my God, the big. I'm like, it's New York. It's
Well, yeah,
whatever.
that's how you tell a tourist in New York.
Yeah.
Their heads are up.
Yeah.
That's
But
the,
it's true. But I've taken people to New York, and it's fun to see it
Yeah.
with tourists, because then you're kind of like the tourist. But then I've gone, doing my cross-country trip and other places I've traveled, you see other cities, and you're like, yeah, that's not a city. New York is a city,
I just went to the city last week with a couple from North Carolina.
Okay.
They were like, the wife lived up here prior. The husband was like astonished in New York.
I brought my kids into New York City for the first time. I've kind of shielded them from it. I brought them into New York City last year, and we're walking straight through Times Square. I'm like, oh, yeah, here's where they dropped the ball. Oh, and that guy with his pants at his ankles playing with himself. That's something you're never going to see anywhere else, and that's the
Welcome to New York.
welcome to New York.
Yeah.
Smelling weed on every corner now. It's really bad.
And it's drifted over the river a little bit, smelling the weed on every corner,
Yeah.
or behind every car as you're driving.
But the odd thing about that is if you smoke a cigarette in the middle of New York City, somebody will yell at you.
Yeah.
But they will not say anything about you smoking a joint out in the middle of Times Square.
But the thing that does drive me, go for the weed thing, good. But the people who you're clearly behind them, and you can smell the cigars, but then you smell the weed, and it's like you're technically not supposed to be doing that while you're driving. But okay.
Oh,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah.
and it's
Well, that's
As long as
can't
they're in
stand
front of you and not behind you.
Well, I can't stand the smell of that. I'd rather smell a cigar than weed. There's just something about that smell.
I had a UPS driver.
Yeah.
A UPS driver. I'm driving behind it. I'm driving my son to school, and I'm like, and I'm looking around, and as I'm driving, it's following me. I'm like, that UPS driver's smoking weed. UPS driver.
I'm not so sure people understand. I have a feeling there are people who think, oh, it's like a cigarette. I'm allowed to do it now.
Yeah, it's really not.
It's not my.
So where did you grow up?
So I did grow up in North Jersey, small town, and moved one county away, which is only 5 minutes from that small town. So it's, yeah.
So you're a local girl through
I
and
am
through.
a local girl, yeah. Caldwell's and
Never-
then moved closer.
Never,
Caldwell's?
The Caldwell's.
Oh,
yeah.
nice.
Yeah,
never stray far from the nest.
Yeah.
pretty much. Pretty much.
I know way too many people in the Caldwells. Where'd you go to? You went to James Caldwell, or did you go to?
I did not. I am the
Or
product.
West Essex?
Neither. I am not so happy to say I am a snotty private school.
Seton
brat.
Hall Prep.
Nope. No.
couldn't. All boys
No, that's
school.
all boys. Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Starts with an M, ends with an A, and that's all we'll say about that.
Starts with an M, ends with an A. I'm going to be thinking about that one for the rest of the night. So
You want me to just tell you? And so
yeah,
you're not,
good. Sure.
well, MKA for short.
No, MKA.
Yeah.
Montclair Kimberly
Montclair
Academy.
Kimberly Academy. Yes.
Oh, Martin Luther King Academy.
She went to MLK.
Yeah.
No, that's not, so. But any college, or did you ended high school?
Nope. I did end up going to college. I went to. It was then. Well, I started out in Gettysburg. I lived a bit of a sheltered then. Now I look back and be like, yes, completely understand because my life is better for it. Went away to Gettysburg. Was exposed to my parents aren't here to tell me. Forgot I was supposed to study.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was a not a great end to the first semester. Had some things, very close family member passed away during that time. So I came back for the second semester, ended up leaving and had to start all over. Went to what was then Caldwell College. It's now Caldwell University. And that's where I ended up. Had a much better GPA, and that's when I graduated.
Well, you were living at home? Mm-hmm. Now, let me ask you this. Did you have a job when you went to Caldwell College?
Just on vacations and like summer vacation and then Christmas.
Okay.
Yeah.
Usually when you have a job, you end up doing better. A little bit better time management.
And, my parents, you just...
Or when you have to pay for college yourself, then you wind up doing real well.
Yeah.
That was my thing.
Or you're reminded of other ways that,
because I knew
paying for you.
I knew how much it cost me when I missed a class in college. Yeah. I knew exactly because I was paying for the whole thing. I was still paying for it.
Like I don't know if my parents even knew. I will admit this now, however many years later, my first semester GPA at Gettysburg was a 1.25. And that is, even I saw that, I was like, oh, that's not good.
Well, if you're going to do something, do it well.
Yeah.
Do it well.
It was, I had that exposure and I look back, I'm like, all right, I had it. I'm not a partier. It's funny. Like I did it. I'm good.
Well, what'd you study when you were at Caldwell or Gettysburg?
Gettysburg, I didn't know.
She didn't study anything
at
Gettysburg.
I studied, how many cases of beer could I sneak into my room? Sorry, Mom. But no, at Caldwell College, I ended up going into communications and then fell into a criminal justice, ended up doubling majoring in criminal justice. I had to pick those, you need to take this class or pick an elective to fill your, and I took Intro to Criminal Justice. I figured that's the class I probably will not fall asleep in. Ended up loving it. And asked if I could minor in criminal justice. They said, you have enough time to major if you want. And I said, all right. And I ended up doing that.
So what was the draw to criminal justice?
Just the people and the things, like what makes people do what they do.
What makes
Criminals,
people tick?
Yeah, what makes them tick. Now I kind of look back like, oh, I should have gone to psychology or forensic psychology or something. But back then I wasn't, I hadn't experienced yet what I've since experienced. So I didn't think that far into it.
Well, that was not like you still weren't going on that career path. Was law enforcement something that you saw?
No. I had my grandfather was a cop who retired. He was a Nutley sergeant, retired in 1968. So before I was even born.
Wow.
And he still worked after he retired. He was the church crossing guard on Sunday. So we'd go down to Nutley. He'd always be up at the top of the hill. And, he would talk about it, but never where I was like, oh, I want to do that. I want to do that. The idea of blood and guts and bad people and all that was not something I ever thought. But I just started thinking that route, and I applied. I took the civil service test. I did not do well on that because filling in the little circles, I don't test well like that. I took a
It used to get me dizzy.
Yeah. I took a similar test, but it was you had to actually answer the questions and aced it for out of state. So started taking tests, started getting interviews and stuff, and I actually did get hired by a federal law enforcement agency. Went as far as going to, it was U.S. Customs at the time, because this is 99, so pre-9/11, pre-everything. And went as far as down to Texas, where I was going to be assigned, met people I was going to work with, sized up for uniforms before I was going to go to the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center. And I got down there, and I'm like, what am I doing here? Like, why? It was October. It was 80 degrees. A guy who was from Maryland who's already working there, he's like, oh, this is nothing. It's like 150 in the summer. Don't worry. And I realized I'm doing something that I really don't want to do. This is not me. Plus, I hate running. So the idea of running at the academy was like, okay, I'm not going to do this.
Try to push that round peg into that square hole. It never works.
So instead of going to FLETC, the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, I got on a plane and went home. And my mom said, she's like, we knew you were going to come home. We just had to let you find your way. So when I got home, excuse me.
You grew up vastly different. If I did that, man, I'd get my ass beat.
My father would drag me back onto the plane.
Yeah.
No, my parents were very supportive. They just kind of knew. They let me.
Well, did they ever let go to you why they knew?
I think they just knew from, I'm kind of a homebody. I think they just knew from just my personality and how I've always been. And even with going to law enforcement, I don't think they saw me out there screaming at criminals, chasing down criminals. They know how, even I to this day will say, like, if you ever had to send me to clear a house, you jump out of jump out from behind, and I'm gonna scream and
running
run.
away.
So yeah, and I've told friends like, there's no way I'd ever do that. I'd be.
Well, I think if I could, and I don't know you all that well, but so the first time you experience anything new in life, whether it's going to the Federal Law Enforcement Academy or clearing a house or anything, you always react. If it's not something you're used to, you always react as if you were a child.
Right.
All right. So when you're scared, you'll revert back to that instinctual emotion. But once you've seen it a couple times, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
Still scares the shit out of you, but you,
you
learn how to handle
You're
it.
like, oh, okay, I felt this before.
To this day and age, again, I know people are going to hear this. They're hearing things they probably don't know about me, whatever. I'm now 48 years old. I'm still terrified of balloons. Gunshots I'm getting a little better with. I'm over the thunderstorms.
Right?
Not it. Not the clown. No. It's the anticipation. So I see a kid in a restaurant or, holding the balloon, rubbing. I'm like, it's gonna pop. It's gonna pop. Oh my! And I freeze.
You're afraid of balloons
Popping. Any sudden loud noises that I don't know what's gonna happen. So if you even think about like slamming the table now or say, hey, we're gonna do this any second, I will be sitting here with major anxiety.
Kev, when you vetted her, you should have found out. We would have had balloons like behind a curtain.
That's my next question.
That's
That's my next question. My next question to every guest that comes in there is like, what's your biggest fear?